Hello, Facebook friends. This is Michael Kuhn again with Access Basement Systems. I wanted to spend a little time with you today explaining and actually showing you some pictures of foundations that have failed or are beginning to fail, that have cracks, the importance of why these should be looked at and not just brushed aside and say, oh, that's always been cracked. Cracks are an important message from your foundation. It'll let you know that something serious is going on and you really need to address it before it becomes extremely serious and sometimes almost impossible to fix, short of rebuilding a wall. So we'll delve into it here. The first picture that I want to show you here is a picture of what we call a vertical crack. It's a straight up and down crack. Generally it's a stress crack, and more often than not you'll find that these cracks are at a pressure point in your foundation. A lot of times they'll be where your beam is going across your floor joists from one side of a foundation to another, and there's a drop on one side of the foundation which causes the crack. Generally in a vertical crack like that, you'll see that the top of the crack is wider than the bottom of the crack, and that indicates that the top of the wall is separating faster than the bottom, so there's a pivot point in your footing right there. Also, if you see a vertical crack like that and one side of the wall appears to be lower than the other side of the wall, that generally means that you've got movement or crack in your footer, and that's a serious issue. It needs to be addressed because it'll start to affect your whole house upstairs, from the walls, windows, doors, all the way up to the roof leaking and issues like that. So that's what the story is with a vertical crack. Certainly serious, certainly something that needs to be taken care of. So now we'll switch over to another type of crack, probably one of the more common cracks that you'll see in a concrete block foundation for sure. And a lot of these cracks you're going to find occur more in concrete block foundations than just about any other kind of foundation. That's kind of the nature of the beast. This is what we call a horizontal crack or a horizontal buckle. There's different places on a wall that this crack can show up. Generally you're going to see it happen about 3 foot down from the surface of the outside of the foundation, or your grade level outside. And it's typically a freeze line crack. It's where the soil condition from the surface 3 foot down freezes and thaws and freezes and thaws, and it'll cause a pressure to push and then release and push and then release on your foundation. And as it does that, it just kind of pushes the wall, causes the horizontal buckle across the wall, and it's a bad crack. It's not one that you want to mess around with too long if you can help it. They start out small most of the time, and they don't move fast enough to make you really pay attention to it until all of a sudden one day they become a real major problem. And I'll have some more pictures to show the results of what that can be for you here in a bit. So generally this is one type of crack, the horizontal crack. I have another photograph here of a different angle so that you can get an idea of what's actually happening. You can see here where the wall is really pushed, and you can actually see the buckle in the wall. You can see the opening. You could just about probably fit your hand in that opening, and that's a wall that's becoming extremely weak. It's getting ready to probably try to push in. There's no formula for anyone to figure out how long you have before that wall comes in, because it's different on every foundation. There's too many other extremities outside, and Mother Nature she has control of the whole thing. So we don't really know when that's going to happen, but when a wall does collapse finally, it's just a devastating problem and very, very expensive to fix. So this is an example of what the horizontal cracks look like and what they can potentially do, and how they happen. So a couple of good photographs for you to look at there. Okay, so we're going to move on to another crack here. This particular crack is an interesting animal. It's probably one of the more common cracks you're going to find. And here again, it starts out as a small hairline crack. You almost have to really be looking for it before you can actually see it the first time. And then they grow and they get bigger until pretty soon you'll notice it and be like, oh my goodness, where did that come from? We call this a stair-step crack, and for obvious reasons it looks like a stair-step. And these can be caused from many different types of problems. Mostly it's going to be undermining in your footing. It can be the result of a bulge in your wall, and it happens in the corner. Typically you're going to find these stair-step cracks are always occurring in the corner, 95% of the time. Sometimes you'll see them elsewhere, but that's usually because of a pressure point on the foundation from either the house or what have you. But the stair-step cracks are generally going to happen in a corner, and more often than not, there's going to be one on either side of the corner that both will go up to the center to make it look like a Christmas tree. We call that a Christmas tree crack sometimes too, but it's a stair-step crack on either wall. More often than not, a lot of times you're going to find that there is probably a cracked footing here. On one corner, or one, 3/4 of the way across the wall, or 3/4 of the way across the wall, the footer on the opposite wall. So there's a movement that's occurring there, and you'll find more often than not your corner has sunk, and that's what's making that crack happen. So your corner can't sink unless the footer has some kind of movement, and the footer can't have some kind of movement unless there's a crack in the footing. So these are important cracks to pay attention to, and know that something needs to be done fairly soon if you're going to save your foundation and ultimately save your house from having major problems with movement. A lot of times you'll also find here, let me find you another picture. Here's a crack that's really separated, and you can kind of see how the corner of the foundation is to the left of the photograph. You can't really see it here, but it's to the left, and you notice that that left portion of the crack of that portion of wall is sinking kind of down and to the left. That tells you that that corner is sinking, and that's an issue. All stair-step cracks will try to do this at some point or another. It could be 2 years, it could be 2 months, it could be 200 years. We don't really know any kind of formula to determine what's going to happen or how that crack is going to move. The point being that any crack that you have in your foundation, the longer you let that go without doing something to fix it, the more you're gambling with your foundation as well as the structure of your house. I mean, it's just, your foundation's what holds everything up, so you got to really be paying attention to that kind of stuff. Here's another example. I'll give you a few more pictures of an example. Now this is a combination crack. You can see that there's a horizontal buckle, and then there's also a stair-step crack going from the top to the center, and then from the center the opposite direction back down. That's a result of that wall bulging right there in the center. If you look at the horizontal crack, you'll see that it's very big right there in the center of the picture, but then as it goes to the right, you'll see that the horizontal crack gets smaller. And if we had more of this picture, you'd see that on the other side it happens the same way. The horizontal crack gets smaller. It's in the middle right there that it's bulging, and so therefore that stair-step crack has occurred because the wall is pushing in just the center area rather than the whole entire wall. So another thing that can happen from a horizontal buckle. Here's another photograph to give you another example. You can see stair-step crack happening in the center there. It's close to a corner on the right-hand side, but you can see it's also close to a corner on the left-hand side. So it's just a short wall that's occurring with. And, at some point or another, that wall is going to push and try to buckle as well. See if I can find you another one here that's a good example. That's the same one. I think that... I think I may have duplicate pictures here, so we'll disregard that. So anyway, that's what's going on with stair-step cracks, and you can see how they can combine fairly easy with horizontal cracks. So none of these cracks are something that you want to mess around with, and we'll move on to the next picture now, and I'll show you the reasons why. Now these pictures here that I'm going to show you are the ultimate demise of any of the types of cracks that we've talked about up to this point. From this photograph here, you can maybe or maybe not tell what's occurred. If you look over kind of 3/4 of the way across on the top, you can see a window that is a window in a basement. And you can see also that straight line right there that goes from left to right on the video, on the picture. That was actually a horizontal crack, or used to be a horizontal crack. Now what you're looking at is the top portion of that wall has stayed up on top, and the bottom portion of the wall has collapsed and come in, and all that you're looking at there are blocks and whatnot that came into the basement from the breaking wall, and then all of the mud and everything else that came in behind that. So a nasty, nasty situation to have to try to contend with. You don't ever want to let your basement go this far, and the thing to note here is that that's mud that came in. Mud means that there's a tremendous amount of water on the outside of this foundation, and it became too heavy for the foundation to be able to hold it back. Here's another photograph of the same scenario. Now this one's been dug out on the outside already, so kind of cleaned up so that you could see, what exactly occurred here. You can see also that the foundation has had to be jack posted up, and probably lifted some to try to get the house back up, and then that wall's going to have to be rebuilt. You're getting into just thousands and thousands of dollars worth of repair, and it will come at a time when you're not expecting it, and it's going to be the worst time in the world for you to have to spend that money to do that. Very, very expensive, and it's something that's completely solvable and stoppable by just getting rid of the water pressure that's on the outside of the foundation. Here's another photograph you can see of a smaller wall area that has come in, and it's an amazing problem, and it's devastating for people, especially if it's a finished basement, because not only are you losing your foundation, but you've lost everything in the inside of your basement, your carpeting, any furniture that was there. God forbid you had your 72-inch big screen TV there. So it's a problem, and many people look at cracks in a foundation and don't really pay attention to it. It is something to be aware of. It's something to be very attentive to, and it would be in your best interest, if you have cracks like that, to give us a call. Let us come out and take a look at it and give you an analysis and an estimate of what it would take to do preventative maintenance on it to stop it from being a big issue. There are ways to fix it and stop it from coming in like you're seeing in this picture. So I hope that this was informative. We certainly appreciate you taking the time to look at it, and we hope that if you have these types of situations going on, that you'll give us a call and let us come out. It doesn't cost you anything to have it looked at. It doesn't cost you anything to find out what it would take to fix it. And it's, the longer you let it go, the more it's going to cost to get it fixed later. So an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So give us a call. The phone number is 717-826-4667. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.